what we have here in WA is probably very special. I haven't had it from anywhere else, but over here, maybe being so isolated, the person is just next door, and you know, you just pick up the phone. Guys, we need this and that. I have this problem. What can we do?
All right, on Mike's Beer Club today, we're out at Last Drop Brewery, and we've been lucky enough to come out on a Friday morning to catch up with Jan Bruckner, head brewer of Last Drop Brewery here at the production facility site. The tanks are behind us and all the cameras and microphones are set up on the kegs this morning, but thank you so much, Jan, for taking the time out this morning.
Thank you for having us, and good morning, guys.
It's awesome to be out here, and I've been looking forward to this day for quite a while, getting out to catch up with you for quite a few reasons, which we'll go through in the episode, but one of them at least is the age of the brewery. You guys are at Last Drop, Jan, are the oldest operating brewery in WA.
That's correct, yeah. We started in 1992. We were actually back then second brewery, craft brewery in WA after Sail and Anchor, and soon after bootleg brewery was set up in Margaret River. So we were the three breweries that were sort of starting this brewing. We were, I should say, pioneer brewers back then. I wouldn't say we were the reason why the craft beer is where it is today, but I wish we can say that. Maybe there is a little bit of truth of that. But definitely, yeah, we were one of the first in WA, and we're quite sort of proud of that. Obviously, after a few years of brewing, more breweries got built in WA, and look at where it is today. I mean, we have so many breweries now, and that's great.
Some of those beers are in your core range at the moment. You have filtered and unfiltered versions of Pilsener, which doesn't sound very exciting on paper, but it's when you sample it like we did a little earlier, it's got some amazing characters coming through, probably as a result of your brewing technique, Jan, with open ferments. Which isn't common, still isn't common in WA, but yeah, the core range is a bit of a choose your own adventure for kind of punters coming into Last Drop.
Absolutely. Look, definitely what we do here is very traditional. So open fermentation, krausening of our pilsners. That's definitely bringing different dimension to the beer. The shame is a little bit that over the years the pilsners and lagers, especially as a general name, don't have as much attention as they should get. I mean, it was really bastardized by, you know, commercial brewing over the years, and that's maybe why people are a bit more keen to try, you know, more pale ales or some other more exciting beers. Pilsner itself is quite clean. There's nothing to hide behind. The profile, it's very sort of, it's a thinner than in some robust pale ales or very hoppy pale ales. So it's going to be right. And again, I'm trying to sort of, what I'm doing here, I'm trying to basically do what I was taught at school, and I always thought that was my belief, that those Czech Pilsners are really great beers, and I still love them till today, although I love other beers, of course, but we're quite happy with the processes, and it's very different from what other people do, and that makes us maybe a bit more special. And when you say it doesn't look very nice or very interesting on the beer menu, but once you get into it, you start appreciating, and I suppose that's what happened, you know, into you. You know, you may not think it's right, but it's got its own place on the menu. So.
Yeah. I mean, off camera, we had a tasting earlier at the bar, and it was just probably a great experience for anyone not so educated in beer, but probably education is the wrong word. If people come in from the commercial lager background and come to see you guys at Last Drop and get into your pilsners and your lagers, it's an easier inroad for them than heading down to say a brewery down the road and getting a very hop forward challenging double IPA. So I guess is there a commercial, how much of it's a commercial decision for you, and how much of it's just sticking to traditions? And I guess is there a diplomatic kind of choice?
Absolutely. We are business. We are an operating business, so we're going to sell beer going to make beer that are selling. So obviously we have to look at the customer profile that we have in this area or in Perth. In fact, we got to be careful though to make those beers purely for that part of the market. It can be very tricky, and you got to sort of make your business plan a little bit around it. So we talked about some other brewers in WA who are in regional parts where they make specialty beers. They use mail order, and that's great, and that's absolutely beautiful. I love it. But for us here, we are maybe a bit bigger, and we need to make sure that we have beers that are that general public will like, and we'll make them. Those beers need to be made in a way that people will come back and will want them to drink them again. So it's quite important to have a good drinkable beers besides some specialties, and we do those specialties every now and then. 4 times a year we have something different, from farmhouse to let's say sour beers we're preparing to make. We appreciate both segments of the market, but we've got to be very careful not to go too extreme. Otherwise, we might face a reality of having beers that are maybe sitting in the brewery for too long, and that's not necessarily the best thing for the business.
I suppose a fair chunk of that as well is coming to work every day and enjoying what you do in your role, even though some of those things they require more labour. Open ferments require more labour, and producing lagers ahead of ales requires a lot more labour and time as well. But that's I guess where the enjoyment comes from, just kind of poring over the quality.
Yeah, there are two aspects to it. First is enjoyment, obviously. That's I think every brewer that makes beer has got to make sure that the brewer is satisfied with the process itself. We don't want to cut corners. We have certain ethics in beer making, but there's a second aspect, and that's the cost of production. Obviously, with production of lagers, the expectations, maturation time, and is expected to be longer. So our beers are, generally speaking, 6 weeks for Pilsners, up to 8 to 10 weeks in a storage. So the cost involved with storing those beers are enormous. We can't bring the prices too high, otherwise we become we are not competitive enough, obviously, and that's very difficult, especially in WA these days, and I suppose everywhere. It's a business at the end of the day, and we love to make beers, and we want to make good beers, but it's got to be beers that are drinkable for general public, and then we have opportunities. We make money to make those specialty beers, and maybe allow them to sit for a bit longer in a brewery.
Yep. Could you talk a little bit more on the beer styles that are featuring Marzens in particular, and the barrel project that you've got going just behind us, which is Mulberry Marzen Saison that's maturing. So that's some fun stuff that you're getting up to.
Marzen being our sort of annual thing, basically again based on traditional German Marzens. It's usually based on 100% Vienna. It might be 100%, let's say 90% plus addition of some other specialty malts. We're using usually Wyman malt and usually pale hops. Again, decoction regime is implemented in the brew house, so it brings a bit more flavor, more depth, and then long maturation, obviously. But when you mentioned that's a barrel project, we have a few trees of mulberries, so we thought, well, let's use those mulberries for something good, and besides just preserves. And idea of barrel-aged mulberry beer came up, and together with my wife and Walter, we just picked the mulberries. Obviously, very labor-intensive process, and we used a blend of farmhouse Saison beer and Marzen as our base beer, and used the mulberries as a fruit, and with the addition of lactic bacteria, Pedicocci and Brettanomyces, we're hoping to get good results and maybe hopefully end up with that beer in a bottle, so at some sort, So that's fingers crossed, and that's the sort of thing we can do. having a good business with other beers, we can produce something like that and not to worry too much about for how much it's going to sell, as long as we please the people that are maybe watching this program, and hopefully we'll get heard on it one day.
Yeah. 1992 was a really different scene to what we're looking at today. Excuse me, in WA brewing, and you guys took a different approach when you opened Last Drop, and these tanks kind of don't tell the story, because behind these fermented tanks you've got some old copper tanks, some copper mash tun, and a kettle that you've bought across from Bavaria. So talk us through a little bit of the setting up of the brewery and bringing some of that equipment across, and what you kind of had in mind in '92 as far as vision and what Last Drop was going to be.
Yeah, back then we're talking about the sort of days where people were not really open up to craft beer as we see it today. We sourced the equipment from Bavaria. It was second-hand equipment back then, and it was built in 1960s. Copper brew house, copper ladder tun. We have some old-fashioned tanks. We have open fermenters, and my background is in Czech Republic. That's where I started brewing, and I learned traditional techniques of brewing, so mainly Pilsners. Later on I learned from my German brewer who was my mentor, Horst Kempf. He helped set up Untitled Brewery back in 80s here in WA, so I got lots of knowledge from him as well. And he actually set up this brewery. He was the person, together with Walter, my business partner, who set up this brewery here. I came a few months later after this, and I helped to sort of develop the brewery further where it is today. But back to the equipment, so we brought equipment here, and we just were thinking, well, in Europe, that's what we love: Pilsners, we love Hefeweizens, and that's how we started. We started with clean, filtered beers, and that's what back then people accepted quite well. But obviously, when we tried to introduce some versions of, let's say, unfiltered beer, the Hefeweizen, let's say, we found some difficulties to sell that sort of beer in those days. Obviously, with time, everything has changed. Over the years, we changed from very traditional brew to brewing beers that are a bit more, I wouldn't say extreme, but a bit more on a higher level as far as taste and flavor, aroma. We're experimenting now with sour beers as well, so that's just a little program we have. We don't know where it's going to take us. It's just a one-off thing, maybe it's going to be something that's done on annual basis, and we'd love to definitely do that, because that's something we mature into from very traditional. We're still very traditional, but we don't mind to sort of try something else and basically brew what public wants. And what we want. I mean, we love beer, and anything like that definitely helps us to get more public to drink those special beers.
I wanted to turn to kind of some of your influences, both as you're starting to set up Last Drop in '92, and some of the WA brewing figures that you've been influenced by, or some of the ones you've followed, and then bookend that by who are you following today? Or
I think over the years there are probably two big figures in WA brewing, Hugh Dunn and Roger Bussell, and obviously these people are behind successful WA craft brewing. Their involvement as far as teaching young brewers, helping out breweries with problems and setups, let's say, those two people are definitely highly what's the word? There are people who I respect very highly, right. and obviously amongst brewers there's a great community here in WA. John Stallwood, Brendan Barris, those brewers who were at the helm of craft brewing in WA. They had a great influence on whole Australia. As far as personalities, I would like to go back to 80s again. Michael Jackson, this is my sort of, although he wasn't a brewer obviously, but he opened up lots of knowledge to brewers, inspiration I'd say as well. And although he's passed away obviously, but he, in my memory, he's the one I'm always looking at as a sort of important figure in what we have today, you know, in craft brewing. And I believe lots of other brewers have the same feeling about him. So yeah, I suppose Michael Jackson would be one of those guys who I would admire the most.
Yeah, and you still the European ties to your brewing traditions, Jan, here at Last Drop are still pretty strong. So you still keep a close eye on, or at least grab a few bottles of pils from Czech or anywhere in Europe that you just want to grab and drink on a Friday night. Is that
absolutely? I'm not just drinking my beer. Yeah. I mean, that's obviously I love what we do here, but again, there are a number of different breweries I admire a lot. I must say, in 90s in Czech Republic brewing went through a bit of downturn, I would say, as far as beer is concerned, as far as flavors, as far as quality. But they realized soon enough that, and what I was trying to say is that they were going away from tradition and what people were used to. They went from decoction to infusion, which is, you know, one of the things that people sooner or later realize that doesn't produce the same result as they were used to. And now you can see in Czech Republic, for example, there's a number of, I think about 350 craft breweries these days, and it's a real response to what, first of all, what happens around the world, but also in the domestic markets, where the beer became very, how would I say, became almost the same across the board. I'm still influenced definitely by, there are a number of big brewers in Czech Republic. Obviously Budvar, that's my probably favorite. It's one of the small numbers, still government-owned brewery, but it's only one of the few that kept the tradition, decoction, you know, 3 months old maturation, so very traditional style lager.
Budweiser Budvar.
Budwari Budvar, Budweiser in English, not the American Budweiser.
Right.
There's always some confusion.
Very different.
Yeah, very different.
So for people wanting to source Last Drop beers and just get to one of your kind of 4 venues that you can drink Last Drop beers, how do they find out about your beers, Jan, and where they can get a cleansing pint of Pilsener?
Look, mainly Last Drops. That's you always get it from. Obviously, we have a number of different venues. Clancy's has been great support of not just us, but craft brewing in WA, whether it's a Clancy's in Fremantle, Canning Bridge, or City Beach. They source our products. There's a number of different outlets in Perth that you can randomly, either it's a rotating tap venues or permanent venues, petition by sort of one of the places, Isle of Voyage at Elizabethan Keys in Perth. So a number of different venues. We're not really limited to our beer is not limited to Last Drops. We are open to sell anyone who approaches us and who wants our beer. And besides that, I would also like to mention that we do contract brewing, so people can, if they're interested in to brew their own beers and don't have facilities, they can approach us as well and have their beer made by us at our venue.
Yeah, all in a pretty pleasant environment to come out to as well. If they want to come out and contract brew, it's a stunning property and a great place you've got out here at Last Drop. It's been an absolute pleasure coming out today, Jan. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Cheers.